Tempting My Billionaire Boss, A Forbidden Love, Second Chance Romance. Written by Zoe Appleton. I never thought that my new grumpy boss would be a drop-dead gorgeous silver fox. That's when Mr. Tall, dark and sculpted to perfection. Ethan Blackwood, a billionaire art gallery owner, is my complete opposite. He's very meticulous and deliberate, whereas I'm a go-with-the-flow kind of gal. The only thing we have in common is the love of art. After seeing the beautiful artwork I created, he offered me a job. Of course, I couldn't say no to one of the hottest gallery owners in New York City. Our first kiss left me weak in the knees. His touch is irresistible. His passion takes me right over the edge. I had no idea that the word yes would turn my world upside down. What will he think when I confess my love, and how will he feel about the surprise pregnancy? If you enjoy this book, check out Secrets of a Billionaire Boss and Claimed by My Boss. They are full of mystery, intrigue, and spicy hot. Chapter 1. Kelly. I'm sitting at my desk, watching my students pack up their belongings and head towards the door. Another day of teaching young artists is coming to an end, and I can't wait to go home and relax with a glass of wine. Suddenly, a knock came from my door. Turning my head, I see Mrs. Walters walk in, followed by a tall, well-dressed man I don't recognize. Kelly, can you please stay behind for a moment? I have someone I want you to meet, Mrs. Walters says with a smile. I feel a sense of unease as the man approaches me. He's tall, with piercing eyes and an air of confidence that's almost intimidating. Mrs. Walters introduces him as Ethan Blackwood, the owner of a prestigious art gallery in the city. I can't help but feel a twinge of excitement at the mention of an art gallery. Mr. Blackwood explains that he's looking for top students to produce original pieces of art for a show he's putting on for young artists. I can hardly believe what I'm hearing. My students, creating art for a real gallery show? As Mr. Blackwood spoke, I could feel the excitement building inside me. This might be the opportunity of a lifetime for my students, and maybe even for me. The thought of my students' art hanging in a real gallery is almost too much to bear. I would like to come back and talk to you and your students about the opportunity, Mr. Blackwood says, and have either individual pieces made or, since your students are younger, work on a collaboration of ideas. What are your thoughts on this? I nod eagerly, barely able to contain my excitement. That sounds like a wonderful idea. I'm sure the students will be thrilled at the chance to have their work displayed in a gallery. Mrs. Walters gives me an encouraging nod, and I turn back to Mr. Blackwood. We would be happy to work with you on this project, I say, trying to keep my voice from shaking with excitement. Excellent, Mr. Blackwood replies with a smile. I will return tomorrow during regular school hours, and we can discuss it with your students. And then perhaps, with the coordination of the school director's office, schedule a field trip for students interested in participating in the event to come to my gallery, walk around, and see what types of pieces they should consider creating. I can hardly believe what I'm hearing. This could be the chance my students need to showcase their talents and to inspire them to pursue their dreams. As Mr. Blackwood leaves the classroom, I feel a sense of excitement and anticipation building inside me. Maybe, just maybe, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for. Moments later, I stood in my classroom, looking at some of the pieces my students turned in for assignments. Many of them showed promise and possibilities. Grabbing my bag, I turn, walk towards the door, and turn off the lights. It has always been a dream of mine to have my art in a gallery. However, after the car accident, I found it extremely difficult to pick up a pen or even a paintbrush. Now, with this opportunity presenting itself, I could possibly find the inspiration to get back into the craft I love so much. Pulling away from the school, I couldn't help but feel excitement surge through my body. I couldn't wait to get home and celebrate. I drive towards my house, still feeling the excitement from my meeting with Mr. Blackwood. On the way, I decided to stop by a local store to grab some food for dinner. As I walked in, I saw one of my students' parents, Mrs. Park, shopping with her son, Tyler. Tyler spotted me and ran over, his face lighting up with a smile. "Hey, Miss Reyes, did you see my art project? I put so much effort into it," Tyler exclaimed. I smiled at him, glad to see how enthusiastic he was about his work. "Yes, Tyler, I did see it, and it's fantastic. You have a real talent for art." Mrs. Park joined in, beaming with pride at her son. Thank you, Miss Reyes. Tyler has been talking about your art class nonstop. He loves it. We chatted for a few minutes about Tyler's progress in class and some upcoming school events. I told them about the surprise I had planned for the class tomorrow, and they both seemed excited to see what it was. As we parted ways, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the supportive community I had at the school. These small interactions with my students and their families always lifted my spirits and reminded me why I loved teaching art. I picked out some ingredients for a homemade pasta dish, paid the cashier, and headed home with a smile on my face. Maybe this would be the night I finally pick up a paintbrush again. My apartment wasn't huge. A single bedroom, living area, and a bathroom with a stand-up shower was all I really needed. Living in New York was a unique experience for me. Growing up in Maryland, I was accustomed to a lot of open space and a large home. Downsizing to an entire apartment that was the size of my bedroom growing up was an adjustment, but an adjustment I was willing to make if it meant I could follow my dream. Tossing my keys into a large bowl of mail and placing the bag of groceries on the counter, I pulled out a pot, filled it with water, and set it on the stove to boil. From there, I pulled out a bottle of wine that I had chilled in the fridge and popped the cork, taking a quick swig right then and there. I knew that drinking from the bottle wasn't ladylike. In fact, my father used to yell at me when I did it. He would say, "Kelly, you are not a wino, don't act like one." He would then take the bottle, pour a glass, and hand it to me. I guess when you are the daughter of a well-respected doctor, all your actions reflect on him and the way he raised you. When I decided to move to New York and become an artist, they really didn't like my decisions. My father cursed me up and down for about 3 hours, telling me that I was wasting my talents and I needed to go into the family business. "Become a doctor or a lawyer," he would say. "Artists are starving for a reason," he would remind me. I didn't care. Art was in my blood, and I was going to do everything that I possibly could do to pursue it, even if it meant babysitting a bunch of children and instructing them in the proper use of a crayon. Teaching was only the first step in the plan. Once I started making connections, then I could move forward. The only problem was my hand. Gazing down at it, I could see the stress and fracture marks, scars of a battle with an automobile that some say I won since I was alive. But deep down, I knew it was life giving me a reality check. My father and all the others who doubted me pushed the tides of the universe to their will. However, I fought back, and I continue to fight back. I guess that is why I have trouble trusting people, men in particular. My past 3 relationships were with abusive, controlling men. Now, I was never struck physically, maybe a few close calls with pushing their buttons, but I was a strong woman. I wasn't going to be pushed around, controlled. I didn't have a problem with them being grumpy or moody. I could understand that. When it came to them telling me what I was doing and how it was going to be done, that is when I left. And leaving was my greatest defense, however. It put me into the situation I was currently in as well. Taking a deep breath and closing my eyes, trying to push back the memories that have haunted me for years. But they come flooding back, as they always do. It was a bright, sunny day, just like any other. I was on my way to a local park where local artists were showing off their work. It was the Spoleto Festival, and many musicians, artists, and performers would be there. I believed it was my opportunity to shine, so I carefully packed the back seat of my car with my work and headed off. I remember feeling nervous, but excited. This was a big opportunity for me, a chance to showcase my work to a wider audience. As I drove down the highway, lost in thought, I suddenly heard a loud honking sound. I snapped back to reality just in time to see a car barreling towards me, the driver completely out of control. I swerved to avoid the car, but it was too late. The other driver hit me head-on, and my car spun out of control, crashing into a guardrail. The sound of shattering glass and metal still echoes in my ears. I remember screaming, the pain in my hands and arms unbearable. My right arm was broken in 2 places, and the bones in both of my hands were shattered. It felt like hours before the ambulance arrived. I was in a daze, barely aware of the paramedics trying to stabilize me as they loaded me into the back of the ambulance. The pain was so intense that I couldn't even cry. The hospital was a blur of activity, X-rays, surgeries, and countless hours of physical therapy. It took months before I could use my hands again, and even longer before I could paint. I still bear the scars from that day, both physical and emotional. It's a constant reminder that life can change in an instant, that tragedy can strike at any moment. But I've learned to push past the pain, to keep going even when it feels like everything is falling apart. And now, as I look back on that day, I realize that it was a turning point in my life. It forced me to reevaluate my priorities, to focus on what really matters. And although the road to recovery was long and difficult, it led me to where I am today, a teacher, a mentor, and an artist who's still learning and growing every day. The water in the pot was at a rolling boil. Turning down the heat, I waited for the water to simmer before pouring in the pasta. Taking the empty glass, I filled it with wine, took a sip, and held it in my mouth for a moment before placing it back on the counter. A smile came across my lips as the memories of the last few hours gave me both joy and hope for the future. Tempting My Billionaire Boss, a forbidden love, second chance romance. Written by Zoe Appleton. This contemporary romance is page-turning with exceptional world-building and characters that are realistic and intriguing. Their journey is enthralling with a grumpy boss who owns his art gallery and is also drop-dead gorgeous, a mature, explicit romance that is engulfed by steamy passion, lust, desire, and spice with all the feelings, a surprise pregnancy, forbidden love, an age gap, opposites attract, second chance romance, drama, heartfelt emotions, adventure, and more. You can get your copy on Amazon or by visiting my website at zoeappletonwriter.com. Also, don't forget to get claimed by my boss and Secrets of a Billionaire Boss, a secret baby, second chance romance. If you love hot and steamy romance, action, adventure, and suspense, these books will have you on the edge of your seats, hearts pounding for more. Visit my website zoeappletonwriter.com for the complete list and links to my published works.